See, the problem with radio, in the biggest way, and the crap that they do, and the shit with these assholes. If you listen to the radio enough, you'll find that it basically overplays the living piss out of anything it does play. It plays it to death until you fucking hate it. And if you complain to them at all, they'll just be like, "Oh, we're winning anyways." Because if you're listening to us that much to actually detect that we're overplaying something, well, then you're listening to us a lot, and that's great. We've got your business, we've got you trapped, and they don't fucking care. They get completely dismissive of the whole thing, and it's at the point where it's fuck you. In response to that, I'm not tuning in anymore. I'm finished. I'm taking my business to Spotify or to Pandora as it is with me in the car, and you can suck my dick, you fucking idiot. You're losing me. I don't take no for an answer. If I want more variety, and I come in with a complaint and I say jump, you say how high. You're I do not fucking care. I don't want to fucking hear it, and I don't care how your other customers feel. Fuck their feelings. I want things my way, and it's my way or the fucking highway. I'm not going to compromise. I don't give a shit that you've got other people to serve. You're gonna do things that I want, or you're not getting my business at all, even if it alienates the other ones. I do not care in the slightest. So, what was, you know, radio's answer to increased competition from the internet? It was less variety. Stations fear listeners will tune out unfamiliar tunes. You know, synth pop band Capital Cities has plenty of songs in its debut album that it once promotes as singles. If only radio programmers would announce it. The band's hit, Safe and Song, is the only song most fans have heard. It's been playing on the radio for more than 2 years. And because many listeners now know the song, which peaked last year at number 2 spot on radio's top 40 chart, stations are afraid to take it out of rotation. Safe and Sound just wasn't going away. You don't want to shove it down people's throats if they're not ready to move on. Faced with growing competition from digital alternatives which provide the variety people are seeking, traditional broadcasters have managed to expand their listenership with an unlikely tactic, offering less variety than ever. The strategy is based on a amount of research that it shows in increasingly granular detail what radio programmers have long believed. Listeners tend to stay tuned when they hear a familiar song and tune out when they hear music they don't recognize. That's not me. The data, coupled with the ballooning number of music sources competing for listeners' attention, are making radio stations more reluctant than ever to pull well-known hits from the rotations completely tone deaf. You know, extending the time artists must wait to introduce new songs. The top 10 songs last year played close to twice as much on the radio than they were 10 years ago, according to MediaBase, a division of Clear Channel Communications. The track spins for all broadcasters. The most played song last year, Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines, aired 749,633 times in the top 180 markets monitored by MediaBase. That is 2,053 times a day on average. The top song in 2003, When I'm Gone by Three Doors Down, was played 442,160 times. This is partly about about 70 new top 40 stations that have sprouted up over the past decade, said Clear Channel's president of national programming, Tom Pullman, when the stations specializing in rock and smooth jazz had dwindled. But other radio formats are getting more repetitive, while the line is blurring between pop songs and songs that were once fit more neatly in other categories, as artists and listeners embrace a wider variety of songs as they jump from one genre to another on digital playlists. The top country song last year, Darius Rucker's Wagon Wheel, was played, 229,633 times, while the 2003's top country hit, Lone Star, My Front Porch Was Looking In, only got 162,519. The intensifying repetition is largely a response to the radio stations that now measure listenership. 6 years ago, the industry began tracking listeners in many radio markets with pager-like devices called portable people meters, which monitor all the stations the selected listeners hear throughout the day in their homes, cars, or public spaces. Radio programmers can now watch how many of these people tune in and out when they play a given song. In the past, the same listeners recounted their listening habits in handwritten diaries that were far less detailed or accurate. And here we go. You know, it's this. This is the crap that we're seeing. These are the songs that are getting completely like salted the earth, played to death on, or at least back when this article was being written. Programmers also take on research to account when building their prime time playlist, like listener surveys, social media buzz. Since people data based on relatively sample size isn't perfect, but the numbers are impossible for advertisers to ignore, and because listeners generally tune out when they hear a song they don't know, radio stations have carved out special time slots for new music so that they can keep familiar tunes in the regular lineup to preserve their ratings. Whereas my Spotify is tuned to Discovery so that it plays almost exclusively stuff that I don't fucking hear because I'm in pure Discovery mode. 3 years ago, Clear Channel launched a program called Artist Integration that plays snippets of new songs during advertising times instead of music designated time. Clear Channel itself is buying the ad slots in order to promote new records, as Los Angeles hip hop station Power 160 does experimenting with new tracks and New Music Tuesdays, which airs in the afternoon. Old-fashioned terrestrial radio remains by far the most popular source of music in the U.S., which I don't understand, and the way most consumers say they discover new music, which is not how I do. If I'm lucky, YouTube will fucking give me a good rec, I'll just stumble into it, In addition to playing fewer hits more often, the radio industry has taken a range of other measures to hold on its audience in the digital age. In August, for instance, broadcasters rolled out an app called Next Radio, preloaded onto many Sprint phones that lets smartphone users listen to FM radio without draining their batteries or data plans. Songwriters and publishers of top-spun songs benefit from the extra airplay they get now, since they get paid royalties for every radio spin at a rate that increases more the more the song becomes a hit, thanks to the way performing rights organizations distribute publishing royalties. But for record labels and artists who don't earn royalties from airplay in the US, the growing wait time to launch new singles makes it even harder to sell albums. Album sales fell 8% in 2003 to, god damn it, 289.4 million, according to Nielsen SoundScan. It's easier to sell albums when you have multiple hit singles, said Wisconsin's capital city manager. Veteran radio promoter Richard Palme said that he tells programmers they should spin a new song at least 150 times during peak listening hours, basically rush hours, before they draw any conclusions about whether fans will like it or not, since many songs take time to grow on people. But that can be a hard sell. When Mr. Palme first asked the top 40 stations to play the Rosemarys acoustic guitar-driven single Ho Hey in 2012, for instance, many responded incredulously, making jokes along the lines of, "What are you giving me, a Peter, Paul, and Mary record?" Mr. Palme gave up and set out to land on the adult alternative station instead. 6 months later, it peaked at number 2 in the top 40 chart. Sometimes there is simply no room for new tunes, despite a programmer's wishes. Eldo Darden, vice president of programmer at New York's Hot 97, didn't have the space to immediately add a single from Wiz Khalifa's albums. When it came out, even ONIFC, when it came out last winter, even though he liked it, the record label had bought ad time, and Mr. Khalifa, he would come to do promotional interviews as one of Mr. Hip Hop's biggest stars. In the new world of scrutinized of radio, Mr. Darden said taking risk is not rewarded, so we have to be more careful than ever before. And you wonder why they can't pay me enough to tune in to their shit broadcast. Variety is gone. I'm not tuning in for the purpose of hearing my favorite song be played, especially because, if you ask me, most of the popular music is pretty terrible. If a lot of people like it these days, usually it's dog shit. Sorry, that's just the way that it is. I mean, the good stuff usually doesn't have a really massive fandom, it tends to be, maybe it's medium and stuff. And I'm no hipster. I don't hate things just because they're popular, but looking at what's popular music wise, No thanks. For the most part, in these songs that they're playing on the radio, there's no interest anymore. Like I am thoroughly out of touch with that crowd, and I don't want to be in touch with it. I have way more fun in the doghouse, and I look at this and I see this crap, and I just what'd they do? You know, they decided to take even less risk. And what option did I have, but to flee to Spotify in response to all this? I don't I don't tune into terrestrial radio at all anymore. In an average year, I will listen to not even a single nanosecond of terrestrial radio. I don't hear them at all. I'm done, you know. So they can't track my listening habits at all either because I'm not listening. I fucking hate the shit that they're playing. You know, there's no point for me to tune in at all, and here we are. In today's world where what they've done in response to all the complaints is to just be like, oh, we overplay things, we're winning anyways. It's just like, I roll, fuck you. If that's the case, I will take my business to somebody who will give me what I want. I'm not willing to take no for an answer. That was your first mistake when we had started this conversation.